I committed my entire life savings to buy grapes, and I come back to make wine for the first time, and I kind of realized, oh, I have amazing grapes here, and they turn into amazing wine. If I just keep my hands off of them, that keeps happening, because good grapes make good wine.
Hey everyone, today we're going to check out Penny Lane's Vineyard. They're doing organic wine here in Paonia, Colorado. It's this little hidden valley that nobody knows about. Some of the best wines are made here. This amazing farmer and viticulturist is going to show us how he takes wine grapes all the way to a bottle. Let's go.
When my dad moved here, he just wanted to grow all his own food, and part of that is having a little bit of everything. So we planted one row of all different kinds of trees: peaches, plums, nectarines, cherries, pears, apricots, and about 5 different varieties of each tree. So if there's an open space like there is here, that's because that variety just didn't do as well in our climate. We get enough fruit, and we're not trying to make money off of this. So on to the grapes. In that first row, we've got about half a row of table grapes. That's just for fun. Get some nice table grapes to eat. If you freeze them, they're incredible. And then the rest is own-rooted Pinot Noir. They're all in their own rootstock, which is, in a lot of places, a little sketchy, and especially here because it's a disease called phylloxera that eats grape roots. That'll just decimate your whole vineyard. So if that gets into the vineyard, you're screwed. We don't have phylloxera and just are careful with not allowing people to just walk through the vineyard after going through another vineyard that may have phylloxera. So hopefully we can stay safe, because we think that own rootstock, that Pinot Noir rootstock, is going to produce the best grapes. Right now we're just a little bit past veraison. Veraison is when the grapes start turning purple. Just because they're purple doesn't mean they're ripe. We will still test for sugar. You can tell by feel, you can tell by taste, but we do the Brix test. Light refraction will tell you what percent of sugar. Normally we get to 22, 23 Brix. That's about as high as we can get, because our growing season ends in October and it starts slowing down ripening as the sun stops being as much of a presence. And so we can only get about that high, but it creates a really nice wine because that only lends to like 12, 13% alcohol, a little bit more delicate, a little bit more old world style. It's not going to punch you over the face with flavor. It's going to be a little bit more subtle, but there's some really cool nuance in those flavors that ends up being really cool. So like what I'm doing right now is I'm going through and just cutting out all the ones that didn't make it. I would have loved to get in here a little bit earlier this year, but we've had such a good growing year with everything. Like all the fruit just went bananas this year. So haven't been able to focus here as much as we wanted, but we've got some last minute time to make sure the grapes are looking amazing before harvest. This is kind of the last chance to cut out any ones that we miss that aren't going to ripen, because by the time harvest comes, these will not be ripe, but they will be purple. So you're not going to be able to tell the difference between these grapes and the ones that are perfect. And you only want the perfect ones in the wine, because good grapes make good wine. I do as little as possible because I don't want to add any chemicals to the wine, super minimal preservatives, and I want to do a wild fermentation. So all of that is me taking my hands off, which means the grapes need to be as good as possible. The best part about growing in Paonia, it's the highest AVA, the highest viticultural wine growing region in North America. So what that brings out is really nice, crisp acidity and bright fruit. And that does that with all the fruit. So peaches from here are amazing because they're really acidic and very fruit forward in their flavor. They're very expressive, and that's also in the grapes. But when you turn grapes into wine, that flavor just gets so much more concentrated, and you experience it so much more viscerally than just eating a grape, that it makes for a really amazing, unique wine. Pinot just has this perfect time window where it never freezes out in the spring because it blooms just late enough that it misses all the spring frosts, and then it ripens like literally just in time, right at the last frost. So our harvest date, we get as ripe as we can get, and then we see that it's gonna freeze in 2 days, and we gotta pick. So it's literally the perfect window to grow Pinot Noir here, and that high elevation really brings out some just amazing flavors in a really delicate grape.
How did you get started?
So my dad wanted to grow all his own food and retire here after building houses his whole life. Since this is a great area to grow grapes, there's some other wineries around, grape growers, and my dad was trying to figure out what to plant. His buddy was like, hey, plant Pinot Noir grapes. I'll buy all the grapes from you when they're old enough. So he did, worked on them for 3 years. Finally, we got a crop, and he was like, hey, I have grapes. buy my grapes. The guy was like, no, the vines aren't mature enough. Why don't I show you how to make wine from the grapes you have and I'll buy them next year. And that was the biggest mistake he ever made, as the guy wanting to grow all his own food was like, well, I'll just make my own wine as well. And so just kept making his own wine every year, and eventually got to the point where people liked the wine coming out of his vineyard enough. And so he got a liquor license to start selling wine. I started looking for a business in my mid-20s, knew I wanted to start a business, but wasn't sure what it was, and just started talking to my dad about what it would take to really do a winery. At that point, he was just making it as a hobby, had no longer been selling it. And I kind of was like, man, if my dad can make great wine, I can make great wine, because he's 75, he's making it for himself, he doesn't care, but people love it. I'll have him teach me how to do it. I'll be able to figure this out and make great wine. The thing was, I committed my entire life savings to buy grapes and then get a liquor license. And so I'm 6 months in, heavily invested, and I come back to make wine for the first time, and I kind of realize, oh, my dad doesn't know what he's doing. So I really had to teach myself in a lot of ways. His guidance was super helpful in that it was have good grapes, let them do their thing. But there was a lot of trial and error getting going. The main thing is, like, I have amazing grapes here and they turn into amazing wine. If I just keep my hands off of them, that keeps happening. All I do is I act as a steward, and the grapes turn into great wine, and that's all we got to do. So we started planting a new Pinot Noir vineyard in 2020. Ended up being horrible timing. That fall was unseasonably warm. It was like 70 degrees every day all the way into October. And then the first freeze of the year, it dropped down to 13 from 70 that night. The grapes, not only were they young, but they had no chance to harden up for the winter with some light frosts or close frosts. We had a 20% survival rate in this whole new vineyard that year. The next year, we replanted, and they're coming up just fine, but you can see the difference here from that extra year of growth. This is one of the original grapes that survived from that 2020 planting, and then right to the right of it is a replanting, a refill. And if you look around the rest of this vineyard, you can see how much was killed off that first year by everything else being pretty close to the ground. So eventually this vineyard will come up, but if you're looking to grow grapes and make wine, you have to be really very patient, because it's going to take you about 4 years minimum to get a real crop of grapes, 5 to get like a really good crop of grapes. And then if you're making red wine, you're going to be about 2 years additional to that to age the wine. So you're looking at 6-7 years if you plant a vineyard to the point where you get wine that you could sell.
So what's this old truck doing in the field?
This truck came with our farm when we bought it in 2002. It's a 1943 International dump truck. And if we had had maybe a little bit more car skills or time as we were building this house, we probably could have kept it running. And there happened to be a lot of junk here, so we were using the dump truck to haul it away, and this is where it died. Outside my childhood bedroom, I stared at this truck every day, and being a young boy, you fall in love with trucks and dump trucks and playing with them all the time. So I always loved this truck, and I stared at it every day, so it had to go on the wine label. This is the Penny Lane wine cellar. It holds about 36 to 40 barrels, as well as about 2 years of wine bottle storage. This back wall is about 20 feet underground. It is built into the side of a hill, and that keeps this whole room 55 degrees-ish in the winter, up to about a high of maybe 70 degrees in the summer. But it changes temperature very slowly. This entire building is within the old fruit cooler of a giant fruit packing corporation. This came with our farm when we bought it. These are all the barrels that I made in 2023 sitting here, and they'll be here for about a year. I rack them twice a year while they're in barrel and top off about every month. Mostly these barrels just sit here for a year. Racking is when you take all the wine out of the barrel, clean the barrel out, and then refill the wine back in. What you're clearing out the bottom of the barrel is everything that falls out of solution of the wine. It's a lot of times dead yeast cells, a little bit of the grape seeds, stems, anything that got mixed up in the winemaking process. And that'll be about an inch the first time, an inch of gook. It's pretty gross looking, but it all comes out of the wine. You take it all off, and that's after the fining process. So The wine fines, as in everything falls out of it. You just have the wine left over. And what I do compared to what some larger corporations do is I'm not adding any agents to do that. So there's nothing that is being added to the wine to make it clear. It is all just gravity, letting everything sit down and settle naturally. I realized over time how many benefits you get from that. When I started drinking more wine to get more of a taste profile and just learn wines from all different regions, there was a lot of places I started drinking wine that I would just get instant headaches or have really bad hangovers. And then I would come back to my wine or other natural wines that have no additives, nothing in them except the grapes. And I would feel great afterwards. No hangover, no grogginess. I just realized how much better you feel with no additives. And within that, a lot of those chemicals are just going to make you feel kind of gross afterwards. So with natural wine, you're getting this sense of place, you're getting a connection to the land, and you're not feeling bad afterwards, which is a pretty magical connection. Especially if you pair that with local cuisine, it's a really incredible experience. This is a barrel of my 2023 Pinot Noir. This year we had an insane crop, about the second most grapes we've ever gotten, all super high quality. And that was because the grapes froze out for a year, recovered for a year, and then everything was in its prime. We had great weather as well, created a great crop. So my 2021 release, which is what I'm currently selling primarily now, includes Cabernet Sauvignon, Tempranillo, Merlot, and Syrah, with a few more coming. Each of these wines was released at 2 years old, so 1 year in barrel, 1 year in bottle, and they're all really entering their young prime. So you could definitely age these, keep them for a long time, but they're very much ready to drink now and will be great with any pairing. They're available all over the US, direct to consumer, from my website, peonylanewine.com, and you can order from there.
Hope you guys enjoyed today's tour, checking out this amazing operation, how natural wine is made. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll put links down below for Ben's Wine. You guys can check that out. We'll see you next time.